All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back. So if you don't know me, my name's Theo Horn. This is my home garage, and this is my Miata. I've been just kind of doing just a little bit of YouTube here and there. Just kind of dip my toes in it, see how it was. I did just kind of an overview of my garage, my vehicles, everything I have. And then I did a little bit of a build on the Supra while I was down out of work with a foot and ankle injury, but I'm back. And I'm back to work on this. So big thing is a lot of people were asking me for a build breakdown on this car, and by a lot of people I mean just some people on Instagram. And the thing is, I put a bunch of money and time and research and all of that into this car doing a proper turbo setup. It was a 1.6 built, literally valve covered oil pan. I mean, all the headwork you can imagine, rev it to 8 grand, blah blah blah. Fully shaved bay, proper tubular manifold, G25 550 turbo. Like, I did research for months to get this car proper. Had it tuned by a reputable guy, and I got a little bit greedy on it, and I blew it up second drive. I drove it to the dyno, downloaded it, drove it home, and then all good there. Went to drive it like 2 days before an event just to make sure the car was good to go, and it was not. I drove it down the street, did a couple pulls, it overboosted a couple times. By the time I wanted to turn the boost down, it blew up. It lifted the head, compressed, got a little hot in the cylinders. Just running 93, I was peaking like 32 pounds of boost. It was my fault. So blew that up. And sitting there looking at numbers and how much it would cost to rebuild it, and the amount of work to do just the same exact build again for the third time, because that's the third turbo setup, second motor. Just, in my head, it wasn't worth it. I was getting really burnt out on this car, to be honest with you. So, if you can tell by the title, I took a trip down to Florida, visited Taylor Ray, and I picked up pretty much his full LS swap, minus engine, wiring, ECU, and then rear end components. So let's dive into that, I guess. So again, here's the car. If you haven't seen it, like I said, it's a shell right now, but fully shaved bay. I'll end up doing like a full proper build breakdown on this car once I rebuild it with the V8 in it, but just nothing crazy right now. Sparco, cage, was full tablet dash, hydro shifter, livery. I mean, like, it's cool, but it's time to make it cooler. So here's the parts I picked up from Taylor. There's a lot of, I gotta sell all this stuff still, but CD00A transmission. It is the newest, like 350, 370Z trans you can get. Aftermarket shifter to make it shorter back here. I believe it's a Collins adapter. Yeah. Collins adapter. The adjustable throwout bearing, slave cylinder situation. T56 bell housing. And then monster clutch. It's a LS clutch with a CD spline, 6-puck. Should be good to go. And then I'll get into the axles and stuff later. Came with the drive shaft. Frame rail braces, which are pretty smoked, so I'll end up just rebuilding these, but it's nice to have just like an idea of where it goes. His full titanium, crazy pie cut exhaust, his full stainless custom long tube headers, intake, radiator, big old skid plate, front subframe, the other long tube, his expansion tank, I believe that would be called, slave cylinder for the clutch, sway bar brackets, sway bar, etc., etc. So pretty cool. It's a lot of odds and ends, and there's a couple more things. I mean, motor mounts and a couple other random things, but it's most of an LS swap, which is a huge jump in the right direction. Plus, it's like cool parts. Like, I mean, you can't put a price on custom long tubes, custom titanium, full exhaust. Pretty sweet. So the real cool part of this is my dad was making a trip from New York to Nashville, and I was doing a trip from Illinois to Florida, Tail of the Dragon, back to Nashville. And in New Jersey, some guy was selling a full rear end setup, which Taylor did not include. So that included 2 Monster Miata axles, 1 drive shaft shop spare axle. I have to send out because this spline's wrong, but no big deal. So now I have a spare axle, 2 super strong axles. Came with the broached hubs for that to fit the larger splines because these are massive compared to stock Miata axles. And then it also came with a rear subframe, a diff, and some other things. But these I have been already putting work into. I didn't film anything because I'm a bad YouTuber, sorry. I'm trying to dip my toes into this a little bit. I don't know how I'm going to do, but kind of got all this prepped. So I'll go over this now. Here's everything we've got. Oh, sorry. Came with the subframe with the mounts welded in. I had to move this one a little bit. It wasn't perfectly centered. Now it is. That one's pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. And then this is the updated subframe. So it came with these tabs to put the braces across. I did buy that from a local guy. I had to clean it and paint it and stuff, obviously, but as long as it fits. If not, I'll make it fit. It'll just be nice to connect all these arms, add some more strength to it. And then bushings, 488. I had this welded. I'll see if I can insert a photo here. I don't know how to do that, but if it works, here you go. Hopefully it worked. Got that welded. Corwell Customs in Plainfield. Always does me right. Came with the rear hanger for that. Bushings, they go in here. Mount that to the front. And then, like I said, I have axles, hubs. I've got all the rear stuff already in the car. So this is why I'm like putting a bunch of work into this right now, to have this done, installed, and just done with the rear end. And then I can spin it around and work on the front. So now I'm going to explain myself a little bit, because if you know me, a lot of you don't. Was kind of anti-LS and drifting for a very long time. I still kind of am. In my opinion, when I go to a drift track, I should hear Japanese sounding engines, and that's just my opinion. But we're in America, and the parts availability for LS, which you guys have heard this a million times, it's true. I can go to the parts store and I can get pretty much anything I need. Also, I'm not going to put a JZ or something in here, and I don't know, it made sense. Taylor posted this stuff for sale, and I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense. But the real reason, so my first turbo setup made 150 horsepower. Well, I started stock, okay, so like whatever, 80 horsepower. I needed more power. Turboed it, very, very eBay special. I made 150.9 horsepower. I thought it was sick. It worked, and then I wanted more. So I went to a G20, no, 2554, little tiny turbo, mad responsive, made 230. That was fun. That was probably the most fun I had in this car. It was super responsive, never had an issue, really enjoyed that. I ended up blowing up that motor as well. Went to pick up a new motor from a buddy, came with a big old turbo setup on it, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll try this turbo setup. Way too laggy. That was a Precision 5858 ball bearing, but it was just very laggy for a 1.6 liter. And that motor engine setup made 250, I want to say 251 horsepower. That was cool, but again, it was like you're clutch kicking the heck out of it to keep it going. Like, It revved to 8 grand. It was cool. Once it was in boost, it ripped, but I wanted something more responsive and more power again. So I sold that whole turbo setup. Motor was still okay. I was like, all right, it's a little questionable, but everything seems to check out. That's when I did the new turbo setup, and it ripped. Like I said, it made 310, 315 on the dyno. I think it was like 315, 280 if I remember right. Drove it home, and I was like, this is cool. This is a lot of power. This is fun. I like this. And then it blew up. And I was like, all right, what's my next step, right? So I started looking at numbers, and I got a quote of like 5,000 to 6,000 to rebuild that engine. And then I would have to do fueling mods because I run 93. This car sits most of the time with how many hours I work. So running 93, I couldn't go crazy with it. E85 would have been the route to go, but I don't want to. It would have been a few more grand in AN lines and pumps and injectors. So let's say you're looking at 8,000 to 10,000 to get this car to make 350 reliably. Again, it's a Miata. You got a 6-speed. I had a 6-speed Mazda Speed Miata Trans. One of the best Miata Transes you can get. I had a 4.1, 1.8, braced ears, welded inside, 1.8 one-piece axles, like full proper drivetrain, and 350 horsepower on that car was going to be at like the top. You weren't going to get much better than that. That's about what you had for the way I drive it. And with the way I was going, being 150 horsepower, 230 horsepower, 250 horsepower, 315 horsepower, and still wanting more, I was going to get bored of that, I think. So that's when I started looking at reliability and horsepower numbers, and you have the options of the K series and the J series and the turbo 1.8 VVT, and then you can do the GetRag diff and the ZF trans, but then you're looking at like 15 grand and just drivetrain. So that's when I started thinking LS might not be the worst idea. As much as I hated it, I can get a 5.3, a 6.0, a 6.2, and kind of make a 5.3 350 reliably, like base. 600 you're gonna be in the 6.0 gonna be in the 400s. The 6.2 you're probably gonna be over 500. So when I went to pick up all this stuff from Taylor, I said, hey, your opinion, you've been through them all. I'd like to keep the front end somewhat light, so an aluminum block. What's your opinion? And he said, realistically, I never did the math on dollar per horsepower, but he said, you can get a 6.2 for a few grand, put cams, retainers, springs, push rods, the needed things, and it'll make 500, 530 all day long. On limiter, no questions asked, easily, reliable horsepower. And that kind of got me a little bit excited. I think that would be sick. Following that, there's some issues as far as oiling goes in LS engines. You can get a nice baffled pan, but dry sump is the way to go, and that's what Taylor highly recommended. But that's probably 5 grand in just oiling. So I texted Ben Julian from Ben's Used Miata Parts, Taylor's buddy down there. He was always wet sump, and he did the Moroso pan and the AccuSump, and I think that's probably going to be the route I go. Just overfill it a touch, keep an AccuSump in there to keep oil in the motor. The Moroso pan seems to have a bunch of baffling. I think that's the route. It's, again, and you're looking at $1,000 for the pan and pickup tube, and then a few $100 in lines and AccuSump. So you're $1,500 into oiling instead of 5 grand. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it's reliable. Ben never had any issues. That car's still ripping in another owner's hands, so that's good enough for me. He drove it, and the new guy drives it a lot more than I'm going to drive this car, sadly. So sounds good to me. So that's kind of the reasoning I'm doing all this. I'm bummed to kind of cut up the car and make the LS fit because it is cool, but like, it's just a car. At the end of the day, I can get out another Miata. I can have it caged. But again, I don't know. I hope I like it. I was very burnt out on this car, and it kind of rekindled my excitement for it, and that was the biggest thing. I was out here till 4:30 a.m. the other day working on this subframe, and I was like, okay, bug bit me again. I'm excited. So that's really all I kind of have to say. I might just be yapping too much. You might skip through this. I apologize, but that's all the parts. That's my mindset of why I'm doing it. And I think I'm going to do probably a little bit of a build series. I work until like 2 a.m. usually, and then I work on this. So like getting a camera out and getting the microphone ready and filming everything is not really my jam. I just like to get things done quick. But I'll try and just time-lapse things I do and do like the rear subframe assembly, film that, putting it in the car. And then the fabrication that's going to go on the front is going to be a lot. The rear end's going to be nice and cake easy, but the front's going to be a lot of work. So buckle up, subscribe if you want to see me build this into a 500 horsepower LS powered drift car. Should rip. Thank you, Taylor Ray, for the opportunity of buying all these parts and saving me a lot of headache and research. And these are all tested and proven. They're going to work. He helped me a little bit with kind of like the recipe on what I should do. And the other dude in Jersey, shout out Dad for grabbing these parts, and my mom for letting me stay in Florida with her when I went down there. A lot of people on my side to help me with this. So I'm excited. Let's get this project going, and should be a ripper. Thank you.